You have a hard time saying no. You feel guilty, for holding a boundary because you're afraid people are going to be upset with you. When you're always worried about, the other person, and you have to do something in order to not get in trouble, or you have to give them something, you owe them something, always putting them before you, you're never going to feel an empowered state. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Quantum Woman. I'm your host, Shamina Taylor. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things: people pleasing, perfectionism, and how these things are affecting your wealth consciousness. How are they actually showing up and affecting how much wealth you have in your life? So, this concept of people pleasing is near and dear to my heart. I do have family members that have been people pleasers their entire lives and have been put in this role out of a fear, and many of the times when I see clients who have in the past, I don't have too many clients now that have this, but before, years ago, one of the top things that was coming up was that they, as a young child, they didn't feel witnessed, or they felt like everything they did was wrong. And they didn't want to anger or upset their parents. So they went into a state of people pleasing so that they could, avoid any confrontation or avoid any backlash or any negativity towards themselves, because they were always in this fight or flight state of fear, right? And so when they're in this state of, fight or flight fear, what happens is they are not able to, fully be authentically themselves. They're always trying to do something in order for another person to not come at them or to make them feel bad. And so all the time they always are putting someone else's needs before their own. And they feel like they owe it to other people in order, to give them what they need to make them happy. They owe it to other people and to give them what they need to make them happy, so that those people never get upset with them. And so some of us, I've been through this already in my life. There was some level of people pleasing that I was at. It wasn't to the point where I was totally negotiating my own self, but definitely I was doing it from a place of whenever I saw somebody who I was already in a mood, because I read people and I've been doing it as a young child. I already know someone's going to come at me or be in a grumpy state. I would go right into a place of, complimenting them or diffusing them so that I could get them neutral, so I wasn't being met with their anger at all times. And I had an ability to do that. I still do it to this day, very subconsciously. And I am conscious of it now, trying not to do that, because I do feel like some people, I don't feel like I have to do it, but I do feel like some people, in order to communicate with them, it's almost like you have to put yourself into a state of being in a state of not confrontation, so that they can lower their guard a little bit and that you can get what you want in that sense. But why this is a problem, and I'll tell you this is why this is a problem. But if you're always worried about what other people think, if you're the type that when someone says, hey, where do you want to go eat? And when they ask you where you want to go eat, you say, well, whatever you want to do is fine by me. You're not having a say. You have a hard time saying no. You feel guilty, for holding a boundary because you're afraid people are going to be upset with you. You say no with a very long explanation, except no, period, end of story. Instead, you're doing something where you say no. Here's why I'm saying no. Here's why I'm saying no. Here's all the explanations that go with it, right? And I'll tell you something. When you've got really good boundaries and you're learning to say no, you're in an empowered state. When you're always worried about, the other person, and you're worried you have to do something in order to not get in trouble, or you have to give them something, you owe them something, you're always putting them before you, you're never going to feel an empowered state. So why is this associated with scarcity? So it's the obvious. If you feel like you owe somebody something, guess what? You're already in a deficit. You are in a negative state. You are in the I O energy. And when you're in the I O energy, you're in scarcity. You're in the limits. You're limited in how you're doing things because you're trapped. Someone is doing something to you, or they're taking from you. You feel like you're being taken advantage of. The resentment starts to, and what happens is that just keeps amplifying, because you're not in an abundant state right now. Abundance wouldn't be you feeling like someone is taking from you or you owe them. So people pleasing is not only something that's going to be affecting your relationships with people, but also your relationship with money and wealth. Because if you're in the deficit of IO energy, guess what? It's going to be really hard to put yourself in an abundance of overflow, knowing more is coming. have a dual state. It's either you're all in abundance, or I owe. So this is why I tell people to never loan money to others too. Give if you want, but don't loan. Because if you loan somebody money, guess what? But he owes you. And that, you know what that means for your state? I don't have. I'm in a lack. Someone owes me. I had a client once years ago where she had lent some money out and both people defaulted. And it just amplified her victim story of people take advantage of her when she's doing good. It just amplified her lack, amplified her scarcity. And guess what? Everything she did along the lines was in that energy. So she was going against the grain. She wasn't living in abundance. It was constant uphill battle to make any money or to have more money coming in. She was constantly hitting up against a brick wall because all she was feeling like was, wow, these people took advantage of me and they owe me. So think twice about putting someone else's before you. And moms, our kids are ready and available to be little greedy ones with us, But if you can understand that you have to have boundaries with your kids too, especially limits, it'll help you feel more in a state of power with them as opposed to always feeling like you're doing so much and not getting anything in return. It's really important that we can really reassess that energy, because I know a lot of moms do a lot in the house and they feel this resentment, or they don't feel special, or they don't feel like they're being noticed. And that can also create that lack and that victimness. And you don't want that in your state. You want to be in full abundance. This is why I say hire people if you can. Get the people to come in to do the things, leverage your time out so you're not doing the things that other people could be doing for you, so you can go into abundance. You can feel fully supported. If you have the abilities to do these things, go ahead and do them, right? I think that's the best way, so that you're not feeling like you're overgiving all the time, or you're trying to get people to do things to like you because you're doing for them, right? So always check in with self. Are you fully being in your power, or are you doing things to please others? And this is where you got to do like an assessment, a diagnostic of the people in your life. And if you feel like you're constantly giving to others and they're not getting something back, that's got to go. You got to change that relationship. If you feel like you're in that state, that's got to go. And I always tell people that people pleasing is kind of a manipulative thing, because you're doing something to manipulate another person's emotions so that they don't get upset with you, right? And so that's not a high frequency either of abundance, right? Because you're doing something to get, as opposed to just being in the flow of, abundance. It's got to come to an end, the people pleasing. You're going to have to start doing the opposite of whatever you've been doing right now in order to break this habit and pattern and start valuing yourself and start saying no and having better boundaries. And we'll have more episodes coming up on that. I myself have realized that when I have a full standard in place, magic just comes. So I hope that this episode was eye-opening for you, and it maybe brought something to the surface, and maybe you didn't really see how people pleasing could have been like a scarcity mindset or be affecting your wealth consciousness, because you feel like you owe others and you always feel like, you've got to put someone before yourself. This is where speaking up and open up that throat chakra. And most of my audience is in that state where they're just super powerful and they're going to say what they're going to say. But sometimes we put ourselves last, and sometimes we don't accept support. Sometimes we are doing so much for others and all the things. And sometimes we're pleasing others as opposed to, ourselves. I told this to someone I love dearly, that you got to put the mask on yourself first. You cannot go around trying to get other people to breathe when you don't have that air in you to start with. You can't go help save others when you're not saving yourself. It's a powerful thing to say, and it's hard because we're taught humility, we're taught to be humble, we're taught to give, to think of others before ourselves. And this is not the alignment. This is not power. This is not how you should be doing things. And I'm not talking from a selfish state, I'm talking from a state of importance, of empowerment for you. And what do you want? What do you want to say? Where's the exchange of your time? Where's where you're in abundance, where you don't feel like you owe others and you don't feel guilty? And because when you are trying to always put others before yourself, you're in this state of guilt and you're in this state of I owe. We don't want to do that. I've seen grown men do this, where they care so much about what people think that they're willing to sacrifice their own needs and their own wants and their own vision in order for others to like them. So they don't know how to say no. And their people pleasing goes so deep because maybe they didn't have a healthy relationship with their mom and dad. And here they are doing what everybody else wants, waking up, I don't know, in your 40s, late 30s, and like, what the hell happened? When's it my turn to live my life? Because you're constantly putting others before, right? And it's got to come to an end. And hopefully, after this episode, something shifts and changes for those of you that have been in this state for way too long. Because I'll tell you, this is a great way to expand into more wealth consciousness. Because when you don't owe anybody anything, you get to start feeling the abundance, baby. So I hope that this was a good episode for you. And if it was, then I would love it if you share it with others. Maybe you can leave us a review. Hopefully, you're subscribed because you should be. If you haven't gone to get our book, Unlocking the Quantum Woman, run to Amazon and go get it. You can get the ebook, or I would get the actual book because there's so many journal prompts in there. You want the physical book. You could buy both because we live in an and world. If you haven't joined the Quantum Woman group on Facebook, go ahead and join that. And also, if you have not taken our quiz, go ahead and take our quiz and see where your wealth consciousness is right now. What are you doing right now? Maybe there's some things that you need to shift and change. Maybe there's a program that can help you move that very quickly. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and leave us a review. Tag us on the social medias, share it, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.